What's going on, guys? Welcome to Rewind number 30, WWE Night of Champions 2008. Before we get into the show, I'd like to take this time and run through some reminders. First being that part 2 of our summer lineup has been announced for next month, so starting on Sunday, July 5th next week. We'll be back here with Rewind number 31, and for that show, we'll be doing the Great American Bash 1990. This is the WCW version of the Great American Bash, not the WWE's version. For that show, we have Lex Luger versus Mean Mark Callis for the United States Championship. A 6-man tag team match between the Dudes with Attitude and the Four Horsemen. Doom versus the Rock and Roll Express for the NWA World Tag Team titles. And in the main event, we'll see Ric Flair versus Sting for the NWA World Heavyweight Championship.
Fun stuff there.
Then the following week, we'll be back July 12th. We'll have Rewind number 32, and for that, we'll be switching it up. We're going to be going from a past WCW pay-per-view to a past TNA pay-per-view event, actually. It's going to be Slammiversary 8, back from 2010. And that show will feature Jay Lethal versus AJ Styles, a tag team match between Beer Money, James Storm and Robert Roode, versus the Enigmatic Assholes, Jeff Hardy and Mr. Anderson. And in the main event for that, we have Rob Van Dam versus Sting for the TNA World Championship. So that should make for an interesting one. I always enjoy when we do the old TNA pay-per-views of the past. I don't know. It's just something about it just makes me enjoy them. It's probably just because it's so much different from the other shows we do, like, the WWE, WCW, ECW shows. Because, we can watch those all off the network, too. But for, the TNA ones, you can watch those off of, Impact Plus, Impact Wrestling streaming service. So it has a completely different feel to it. It's a TNA show, so it's different from the other things also.
Yeah, for sure.
But nonetheless, you will have that show coming your way Sunday, July 12th. And then also on Tuesday, July 14th, it'll mark 1 year since our first show we did starting back last year with Extreme Rules 2019. From last year, that pay-per-view. So time really does fly.
What a great show that was.
No, actually, well, I think it actually was a good show.
Oh, it was? I don't even remember. I just assumed it was terrible.
Yeah, I get you. So we're hoping to do a little something for that as well. That's still in the works.
That was the Taker Roman tag. Yeah, I remember that. Never mind.
Yeah, and then they had the Seth and Seth Becky mixed tag and a couple other things on the show.
Corbin hit her at the end of days, right?
Yeah, that was it. So we hope to do something for that. We're still trying to figure out what to do for that, but just know that on that day, we'll see clearly. No, I'm just kidding. We're hoping on that date we'll have something in store of some kind.
I think that I'd like to announce that everything has come to light. I think is a really another big thing in relation to that. Because you see clearly, and I think everything's come to light. So it's
bitter place full of broken dreams, I guess you could say.
Exactly. Yep.
And we'll leave it all behind.
Yep. Very true. We're so stupid sometimes.
Then on Saturday, July 18th, Impact Wrestling will return to pay-per-view with Slammiversary 18, celebrating 18 years of Impact. For that show, we'll have, we were supposed to have a 5-way for the Impact World Championship. That's not going to happen as of this past week. That'll no longer be the case. So,
also, if you want to hear our opinions on that whole thing, listen to that show. We'll talk about it before we review the show.
Yeah, for sure.
The whole situation.
Mm-hmm. So, just know that they'll do something for the world title, I'm sure. But there's 3 people from the originally scheduled match. They're in place. We'll have to see what they do with the other 2 people, or they cut it down to a 3-way, or we'll just see what they'll do. But also on the show, as announced this past week, it'll be Deonna Purrazzo versus Jordan Grace for the Knockouts Championship. And then for the X Division Championship, it'll be Willie Mack versus Chris Bay. So for that pay-per-view will be on Saturday, July 18th. But for Sunday, July 19th, we'll have our official Slammiversary review and a recap. Then on Sunday, July 19th, WWE will present Extreme Rules 2020. And coming up on Monday, July 20th, that's when we will have the review and recap of that as well.
So no rewind that week?
Yeah, no rewind that weekend. It's just going to be all pay-per-views. But
it's going to be a real horse show.
Yes. The horror show.
That's Vince.
Yeah, so for that, we have a couple of matchups announced. We have, actually a few. We have Sasha Banks going up against Asuka for the Raw Women's Championship, and we have Dolph Ziggler versus Drew McIntyre for the WWE Championship. And now we have Bray Wyatt versus Braun Strowman in, what is it? What are they calling it? Swamp?
Who gives a shit? It's going to be in a cinematic match. Who cares?
Yeah, and it's non-title.
Which means Bray's going to win.
Yeah. Basically. Then for our final show of the month, we will have Rewind number 33, ECW Heatwave 1998. That card features Taz and Bam Bam Bigelow for the FTW Championship in a Falls Count Anywhere match. We have a 6-man tag team match between Spike Dudley, Tommy Dreamer, and the Sandman versus the Dudleys. And then we have Masato Tanaka versus Mike Awesome, and plenty of more. A pay-per-view considered by many to be the greatest one ever done by Extreme Championship Wrestling ECW. So we look forward to discussing that one. And with all that out of the way, I'd like to take the time now and do something that we do in every Rewind, and that's give the backstory as to how this event shaped up to be heading in. So this is Night of Champions 2008, the second ever Night of Champions up to this point in time. Quick note for a sec. I for one, actually had the opportunity to attend a Night of Champions pay-per-view before. That was in Buffalo back in 2011. That was a cool experience. Maybe someday I could go into more detail on that time I had at that show. But getting back on track, we've done every single 2008 pay-per-view so far for our series of rewinds. So we have the Royal Rumble 2008 done, No Way Out 2008, WrestleMania 24, Backlash, Judgment Day, and most recently One Night Stand. So this would mark the 7th pay-per-view event of 2008 for the WWE. The One Night Stand 2008 pay-per-view would take place on June 1st, and this show would take place on June 29th. So that's like a 4-week window to try and build to the show. For this show, though, we'd have 2 huge World Championship matches as well as every title being on the line. But for those world title matches, we'd have one for Raw, one for SmackDown, and I guess maybe 3 if you count ECW, but we'll get into that.
Well, they were technically both for SmackDown, right? Because weren't they both SmackDown World titles at the time of the match?
Yeah, I guess essentially you could say that.
Yeah, but whatever.
But the
situation that would happen the next night with Punk.
Yeah,
we won't go into detail on that. Because that's the night after.
Yeah, so yeah, but it was still, I guess, a program for all 3 brands because prior to the draft, which we're gonna talk about a little bit before the pay-per-view, before that, all the builds had taken place on those shows.
Yeah.
But the world title match for Night of Champions 2008 for Raw, who was heading in, was the WWE Championship between Triple H and John Cena. The rematch from WrestleMania 22. On that night, we saw John Cena famously pick up the win in what was the main event of that show.
By submission, too, which is crazy.
Then over the years, it's been said that the original plan actually for WrestleMania 23 the following year was for there to be a rematch between Hunter and Cena for the title. But the plans for that would have to be changed in early January of 2007 at the New Year's Revolution pay-per-view because Triple H during that show would suffer a torn right quadricep, which would sideline him for 7 months. Who was supposed to win the rematch? I guess that's unknown, so I guess you're going to have to just fantasize in your head what the outcome of that one would have been. But
it would have probably been Hunter. They weren't going to Cena beat him 2 years in a row.
But had we gotten Triple H and Cena too, then we would have never gotten Shawn and Cena. So I think things worked out just fine.
Yeah.
However, there would be a couple of other occasions where Cena and Hunter would be in the ring in a match against each other in between WrestleMania 22 and this show, Night of Champions here in 2008. At Backlash in 2006, right after WrestleMania 22, there'd be a triple threat match which also featured Edge for the WWE title. And then earlier in the year, there was a triple threat match. This is all the way at this point, 2008. There's a triple threat match at WrestleMania 24 with Randy Orton for the WWE title, which Cena and Triple H are both a part of. And even at Backlash in April of this year, there was a 4-way match for the WWE title that had both Triple H and Cena in it as well. But with all that in the past, it was time for Cena and Triple H to once again have a one-on-one singles bout. At One Night Stand, John Cena would face JBL in a first blood match, and then Triple H would face Randy Orton in a last man standing match for the WWE title, which, as noted, is a show that we have already covered in full. So if you haven't yet, go ahead and check that out. Haven't been doing a lot of the cheap plugs lately, so I got that one in there. But yeah, give it a play. It was a great pay-per-view, which we had fun going back and revisiting. Cena would defeat JBL, and Triple H would defeat Orton to retain the WWE Championship. Then the next night on Raw, the June 2nd edition, John Cena would face Jeff Hardy, where the winner would earn their opportunity to face Triple H for the title at Night of Champions, where we'd see John Cena pick up the win over Jeff, which would set up the main event for this show. Another thing to point out heading into this pay-per-view, which took place on the June 9th, 2008 Raw, was when Chris Jericho was hosting the highlight reel with Shawn Michaels as his guest. During the segment, Jericho would point out that Shawn would be still cheered by the fans despite his deceit and for attacking him previously. The fans will now boo him, as in Jericho, for doing the right thing. All of this would lead to Jericho assaulting Michaels. He'd hit him with a low blow and then grab onto him, tell him that the worst is yet to come. Then Jericho would throw Shawn's head through the Jeritron 5000, damaging his eye. Up to this point in the last couple of months, Jericho had been a bit of a tweener, I guess you could say, but this would officially turn him heel, 100% all the way. So then for the ECW brand, Kane at this time was the ECW World Champion. And once again, going back to One Night Stand, the Big Show would defeat John Morrison, Tommy Dreamer, CM Punk, and Chavo Guerrero in a number one contenders 5-way Singapore Kane match. As crazy as that may sound for our new listeners or those who haven't seen that match before.
Wait, what was that number one contender match for?
It was a number one contenders match to see who would face Kane at Night of Champions.
Then why is Mark Henry in this match?
I was going to get to that, actually.
Okay, sorry. Go ahead.
So, yeah, as crazy as a number one contenders 5-way Singapore Kane's match may sound for the people who are just listening to us for the first time or those who haven't seen that before, by winning that, they would make Big Show number one contender and next in line to face Kane for the ECW title here at Night of Champions. However, in between One Night Stand and Night of Champions, Mark Henry would find himself into the fold and want to be a part of the ECW Championship match between Big Show and Kane. Then on the June 24th edition of ECW, Mark Henry would defeat Kane one-on-one, non-title, and would be added to that Sunday's title match to making it a triple threat, despite being a SmackDown guy, too, at the time. Then for the SmackDown brand, the main storyline here would be between the World Heavyweight Champion Edge, who most recently at this time had defeated The Undertaker at the One Night Stand pay-per-view in a TLC match to win the title.
To retire him.
Which would result in Taker being banished from the WWE.
And he would never return.
So this would be his first program as the champ this time around. His opponent this time around also for his first title defense.
I never thought about that. What a short reign this was.
Well, he was known for those, though.
He was, but like this one was what, like 4 weeks and a day? Like,
yeah, greatest transitional champion of all time. No, obviously no offense to Edge, but you know, it's just he deserved one long title.
He's your favorite ever. I mean,
yeah, but yes, I'm a big Edge fan, obviously for many reasons, but he deserved to have one long title reign. Shame never got it. But so this would be his first title defense as a now 5-time world champion. And his opponent this time around would be Batista, someone who he had some history with in the past in 2007, but it'd be different this time around. Batista would also pick up a win and would be victorious at the One Night Stand pay-per-view. He would defeat Shawn Michaels in a stretchers match. So now Batista would re-enter the world title picture. On the June 6th edition of Friday Night SmackDown, Batista would face Edge, Chavo, Kurt Hawkins, and Zack Ryder in an 8-man tag team match, with the stipulation being that if Batista's team won, Batista would then earn the right to challenge Edge for the World Heavyweight title at Night of Champions. Batista's 3 partners, however, for the 8-man tag team match would be selected by SmackDown General Manager at the time, Vicky Guerrero. Who would those 3 partners be? Nunzio, Funaki, and Colin Delaney. However, in the end, Batista's team would indeed win the match. Then the next week on SmackDown, the June 13th show, Vicky Guerrero would attempt to stack the odds against Batista once again. This time she'd put him in a one-on-one match with the Great Khali, where the stipulation here is that in order to face Edge for the world title at Night of Champions, Batista would have to win this match as well. in which he did. So then the match for Night of Champions would be Edge versus Batista